Good morning, friends. So today we will be talking about Sqoop. So far we have covered starting from setting up development environment through Hive, and as of today we are talking about importing data into HDFS or Hive using Sqoop. I hope everyone on WebEx can see my screen and hear me. Just confirm before we proceed further. Okay, thank you. And let me confirm even on the YouTube live so that I don't see surprises later, as in last class. Okay, so it seems to be good. So let's start. So we have already seen what are several options that are available as part of the Sqoop import. You should get into the Sqoop user guide. So in Sqoop, there are two versions, Sqoop and Sqoop 2. Sqoop 2 is not still used that frequently. Still people use Sqoop. From commands perspective and execution perspective, they are almost same. If you know Sqoop, you will be able to build applications using Sqoop 2 also with little bit of learning curve. But Sqoop 2 have some issues, and no one is using in production as of now. Okay. So that being said, let's recap a little bit on Sqoop import, whatever we have covered so far. So every Sqoop command have common arguments, which includes connect to pass the JDBC URL, username and password at the minimum. And if you want to give password in the prompt, you can use -P. If you want to pass through password file, you can do it using --password file. And then there are command specific arguments. So import will have certain set of arguments, export will have certain set of arguments. Import control arguments are these ones. I have gone through the list, and the most important ones are table, where you pass the source table name which is supposed to be imported. Target directory or warehouse directory. I have explained the difference between the two. Either of them you have to use as part of your Sqoop import command. And then to tweak the behavior a little bit, you have other control arguments such as columns. If you want to fetch only subset of columns instead of all the columns from the table, you can pass columns. Number of mappers by default is 4. If you want to tweak, you can use --num mappers or -m. So instead of using table to import, if you want to pass a query to import, for example, if you want to join the data on the source table and then import, there are two ways to do that. You can create a view on the source database and pass the view name as part of the table, or you can actually use --query to directly pass the query. But query, you have to use the where conditions, and just to satisfy the syntax. So the documentation provides that. Let me not where, actually I have to search for query. So you have to pass this one when you are running the commands from shell. You have to escape this one, otherwise it might not work in some of the cases. Okay, some cases you don't need to escape, some cases you have to escape. And then if the table does not have primary key, and if you want to use a different column than the primary key to apply the split logic, we have to use --split by. So these are the things which you need to go through and which you need to familiarize, play around, and get used to them before building the application to integrate data from source databases into HDFS. So now we will try to define problem statement and run few commands to see how we can actually get the data from source into HDFS. So the problem statement is, I just want to get data from orders and means I want to join both orders and order items in the source, and then get only data for a given range. So let me log into the lab, and then let us understand the tables, and then we will see. So here I'm logging into the CloudX lab. Okay, and then okay, and then retail underscore DB is the database name, and we have show tables. So now we have orders and order items. Okay, so I want to fetch only uh, data from a particular date to a particular date. I don't want to fetch all the data, and also I want to fetch only the columns which I want to which I'm interested in the target database. I don't want to fetch all the columns. Okay, so there are several ways to do that. You can create a view like this: create or replace view order. What shall we name it? Let me name it as orders items join. I will name it like this, as select star from order. So join order items y on o dot order id equal to oi dot order item order id. Orders, you have already seen in the tables earlier. Orders have 4 columns: order ID, order date, order status, and order customer ID. And order items have uh, order item ID, which is primary key of order items; order item order ID, which is the foreign key to orders; and then a few more columns. So here I am joining both the tables and creating a view. Okay. Now you can actually say select star from orders items join limit 10. Okay, there is a typo. So you can see the data. So from this, I just need order date, order ID probably, order state, order status. I don't need order customer ID, and order item subtotal. Only these fields I want to import. I don't want to import anything else. So there are 2 ways. You can directly put this query, select order ID, order date, order status, order item subtotal from blah blah blah, and you can import. Okay, that is one way to do that. Other way is we can create a view like this, and then we can import. So there are multiple ways to do that, and which one performs better, it depends upon in some cases it doesn't matter. In this case it doesn't matter. In some cases it might matter. You have to play around, and you have to determine which one is better in performance. Sometimes you you will get the answer if you use common sense. Sometimes you have to do the trial and error, and to determine which approach is better. Okay, now let us try to import this one. So this is a view. Okay, or even if you use the query, Sqoop is not smart enough to identify the primary key on which data has to be imported. So we have to use split by. And if you are using query, directly means our problem statement is to get data only from a particular date to a particular date. We don't want everything. Okay, if we use query, you can add the additional condition also as part of the query directly. In this join itself, when we use Sqoop import, we can use the where condition in it itself and get only the data required by us. But if you are using table and if you want to pass this view name as part of the Sqoop import command, in both the cases we have to use split by. If we have to use more than one thread, but for the other purpose where we want to filter data from a date to a date, which means we want to apply where condition, we can use -- where and get the data. Okay, so let's try both. Okay, so first I will try to get the data from view. I am opening another session here. So Sqoop import is the command -- connect JDBC MySQL .ec2.internal 3306. Here we are trying to run Sqoop import. We are not trying to list the databases. So we have to give the database name. Again, for each type of database, the syntax of JDBC URL will change. And you have to follow some of the examples given by the particular vendor. For example, Oracle will give some examples. You have to follow and determine how you can actually create this JDBC connection URL. It is vendor specific. And then username is retail_DBA. And then password is, sorry, ITversity. And then I want to first pass the view name directly. So let me give the view name. Our view name is orders items join. So there is no control argument by name view. There is only table. Okay. So using table, you can pass either view or either table name. And then I want to get data from a particular date to a particular date. So let's get the data from August 1st, 2013 to August 31st, 2013. Okay, so we can use where condition here, where order date, we have to give it in the double quotes. Greater than or equal to 2013 and -- okay. And then, as I have mentioned to you, as the table is a view, Sqoop cannot determine whether it has a primary key or not. So we have, and we are going to use number of mappers as 2 for whatever reason. As we are using more number of mappers more than 1, we have to give the split by logic, or the table has to have the primary key. As we are passing view, it cannot determine which is the primary key, so we have to give on what field we want to split the data. So in this case, I want to split the data by order date for whatever reason. Means you have to understand the data and you have to determine which column should be used. So if you want to partition your data by date, probably splitting by date might be a good idea. So you have to determine by understanding the data. Okay. Hey Venkat, probably you might have to click on call using computer. Okay, he cannot hear. Let me. Okay, so split by, in this case, I want to split by order date itself. And then I want to you have to click on call using computer. Okay, split by order date, and here I want to use warehouse directory, and I want to give the directory into which data needs to be copied. This is the HDFS location. Okay. So now let us try. So if you see now the job is running. If you want to troubleshoot whether the MapReduce job is working properly or not, we can use this link and we can troubleshoot. One more thing you need to identify is when you run the Sqoop job, the log will be generated in the session itself. So this is the log which is being generated. And if you have to troubleshoot the issue, or if you want to build application around it, um, uh, as it will not copy the information into any of the log files, you have to redirect the standard out and standard error, and you need to understand what information is provided as part of the standard information and what information is provided as part of the as part of the standard out, and what information is provided as part of the standard error, and then you have to grep and you have to then build application around it. I will demonstrate that. Okay. So now it has retrieved 14,268 records, and if we look into Hadoop FS-ls user signing 8634 Sqoop import, you will see this new directory, orders items join. Okay, so you can see two files, and it has copied 14,268. It actually have 172,000 records for over a span of 1 year, and we got 1/12 of it. So data seems to be good. It has fetched the data as we expect. You can also cat these files, and you can look into the details whether the data have the date of 2013 August or not. Okay, so now um, as part of the second run, I will use the same query. Let me go here and then copy this one to Sublime Text. Okay, and now let me, instead of giving table, let me give the query here. So I'm trying to do the same import, but in a different approach. So as part of the query, we have to we have to copy. Okay, and one more requirement is we actually have to get only few columns. Okay, so as part of the earlier syntax, we have to use columns, hyphen hyphen columns, and we have to give whatever columns we want to import. I forgot that, and I have imported everything. So let me uh, let me at least give the example. I will not run, but I will at least give the example how to use columns. Okay, in this case, if you want to fetch only few columns, you can give these control arguments in any order. There is no requirement to execute only in specific order. And here we can give whatever columns we want to fetch. So order ID, order date, order status or state, I think status. And then I want order item, subtotal. So we want only these 4 fields. So we can use columns and we can actually get only those 4 fields. So if we have to do it from on the query, there's no point in again passing the columns and use star here. It might work, but I never tried. It's better to directly include as part of the query itself. Okay, and rest of the stuff is same. If you want to compress, you just need to understand how to. So there are 2 parameters related to compress. If you say hyphen hyphen compress, so the data will be compressed. If you want to use so by default it will be compressed using gzip format. If you want to use it a different compression algorithm, you can actually use this additional compression related parameter called compression codec, and you have to use the appropriate algorithm using which you want to compress the data. Okay, and then if you want to store the data in the form of Avro or Parquet file, you can use these control arguments. So these 4 are the control arguments which will control how data needs to be written in HDFS. So in this case, I'm trying to create the files in Avro format. I will come back to that question, Ramesh. Just give me a moment. I will take the questions in a moment. Okay. As Avro data file. Okay, I'm calling Avro because if you go through the Cloudera certification, they have emphasized on Avro quite a bit, and Parquet is also quite popular. You should know how to load data in Avro data file and Parquet file, and then create a Hive table on top of them, and then write the queries. You have to make it working. So now let us run this one. And also here we want to redirect. So as I have mentioned, the standard input output codes are 0 for standard input, 1 for standard output, and 2 for standard error. So some information will be written to standard error and some information will be written to standard input. Yeah, that's a good point. Let me, actually this is not correct. Let me fix this one. Yes, Thank you, Jiva. So this is how you have to use query. You cannot use, again, when you are using query, there is no point in using where and columns. You can actually embed everything in one query. Okay. So let me take the question before okay, let me finish this off. So here, whatever I want to, whatever is generating in the standard output, I want to emit to the standard out, and whatever is generating as part of the standard error, I want to emit into standard error. Okay. So 1 and then 2. Even if you don't add this one, it will automatically, the default behavior is to emit it to the screen, which is nothing but standard output itself. So we can either keep it or remove it, but this is important. If you want to redirect all the logs into a log file and then grab it as part of the script to send email if there are any issues, you can do that. Okay, so I am running this right now. So it seems there is some issue. If it is completed so fast, that means it has some issue. We will troubleshoot. Okay, must specify target destination. Okay, when it comes to using query, because we are not passing the table, we have to give the target destination. So we have to use target dir. And then use it as items join. Okay, and we want to override the table. So there is a parameter to override the table. We need to understand which one is that. So delete target directory, it will delete, and it will recreate the directory, and then it will load the data. I will put it here. Okay, so it's a true false. So delete target directory will actually delete it. We don't need to pass any additional value. Same is the case with compress. It will just compress. Now let us run this. If you want to emit the same standard out into the onto the screen also, you can say 2 greater than ampersand 1, and then you can redirect into the log. So it will actually redirect to both the screen and also to the log. I think it is not redirecting. I need to understand the syntax. I think I have to say 2 greater than ampersand 2 itself. So now it is running. If you want to, yeah, it is already done. So now we can actually do look into the Sqoop import .log. So the import is done. It has exactly copied 14,268 records. So it is behaving the same way, and you can go through the logs. So what you have to do is when you actually run the script, there are multiple ways to do that. If you want to send an email, you can actually grab only the information. Means if you go to the log, let me cat it. If you go through the log, you can see the logs are generated in a standard format. First, you get the date, then you get whether it is info or error or a warning, and then you get some other message. Okay, whatever it is trying to pass the information on to you, you are getting that information. So if there is an exception or error, you will get a line with error here. And then you can either pipe the information, you can pipe like this, -s, and we need to understand how it look like. So you have the date, you have the timestamp, and then the third one is info. Actually, you can directly use grep. So if there are errors, you can say grep error. If you want to be very specific, and if you want to check only for the third field for errors, you can use simple awk command also. But this is very straightforward. You can just say grep error, and then you can redirect to only those things to a file, or send mail. Send mail is another is a command which can actually send an email, etc. So you can do whatever you want. Or if you want to keep track of the logs, you can redirect, and then you can grep, or you can write the way you want. The more sophisticated shell programmers, what they will do is, if there is a grep, so they will only while the logs are being generated. So while this information is being generated, they will instead of reading data later while information is generated itself, we can write a program where all this information is being redirected into a different file, and whenever there is a pattern such as error, it can actually send email directly. So we don't need to push into log and read the log again. We can stream the log in such a way that it is retained and also it is sent email on specific events. So you can write the programs the way you want, but what you need to understand is Sqoop does not write this information into logs by default. You have to use shell scripting or some other programming framework to extract the information you are looking for, and send the emails for the support in case your program is not successful. And that is very important while using Sqoop commands to develop the data integration frameworks. Sqoop alone does not solve your complete problem. So I think there was one question why we have to use where condition. No. So if you look into the query, when we use the query, if you look, we are specifying where dollar conditions, right? So that is the reason why they are expecting us to do that is when they run Sqoop import by generating the map reduce, they append this condition. It is only to save some effort from for the developers. Instead of adding that additional where condition, if there is a where condition already or not, they just want to use where in all the queries, and hence they are expecting that dollar conditions as part of the syntax. So now let me take few questions. Venkat have asked me, so you mean we can have columns? Split by is not to determine which columns to be selected. Okay, again I'm trying to explain you. So if you are using table on a view or a table, whatever it is, if you are using table control argument, and if you have to use subset, if you have to fetch subset of columns, you just say columns and give the columns which you want to extract. Okay, and split by is to split the data on a specific column. By default, it try to fetch using primary key, but this is the view. As Sqoop is not smart enough to identify primary key on a view, we have to use split by clause, and split by will give us flexibility to use whatever column we want while importing the data. And so split by is to just to distribute on a particular column. Columns is the one which will actually tell us what columns we can fetch the data. When you are using hyphen hyphen query, you can include whatever columns you want to fetch as part of the select clause itself. There is no need to use hyphen hyphen columns again to fetch only the subset of columns. And then you can, instead of using hyphen hyphen where, you can directly use whatever conditions you want as part of the query itself. In both the cases, we have to use split by to distribute data on the field we want. Okay. So that is when to answer Venkat's question. If you have any follow-up question, you can ask. And then Jiva have asked, can we use hyphen hyphen where clause as part of hyphen hyphen query command? I'm not sure, but it doesn't make much sense. Just use as part of the query itself. Yeah, Jnana. So thank you for reminding me. We have to use dollar conditions. I thought someone else also have the asked the question. Never mind. I think it's not. So the next question is from Raj. I used all these parameters except delete target directory. What is this parameter for? So if I don't use delete target directory, and if I try to run this command, it will try to write the data to this target directory. Okay. And as the directory already exists, it will fail, saying directory already exists. So if the case is to overwrite the existing directory, you use delete target directory. If you want to append, you use hyphen hyphen append. So in this case, we just try to delete the directory by passing that delete target directory. Okay. I hope that answered your question, Raj. Yeah, Venkat. So the major difference between target directory and warehouse directory is warehouse directory. If you use warehouse directory, it will try to create a subdirectory in that and then copy the data to that location. If it is target directory, it will directly try to copy to the whatever directory we have specified as part of the target directory. I have already covered as part of the last class. I couldn't send you the WebEx invitation for last class. That's where you missed it. So the major difference is warehouse directory will create subdirectories and then it will copy the data. If it is target directory, it will directly create the directory whichever is mentioned as part of the target directory, and it will actually copy the data. In this case, it failed when we specify warehouse directory because it could not determine what should be the directory name when we specify warehouse directory, because we are using query, not the table. If it is table and if you use warehouse directory under this location, it will try to create a directory with the name same as the table name which we are trying to import, and then it will copy the data. I hope that answered my question. Sorry, your question. So the next question from Jnana, warehouse directory will create additional folder with table name. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Jnana. So any other question? So bottom line is we will not be able to cover all the scenarios. First, you need to understand the requirement and go through this handful of control arguments and determine how you can actually use these parameters. So in this command, we have used compress, we have used delete target directory. I have explained how it works. And now let us see what is the side effect of using arrow data file and compress. Okay. So now I am going here and trying to show you what how the files look like. Finding 8634, Sqoop import, orders, item, join. Items join. Okay, it didn't use compress. Weird. Probably with Avro, that compress might not have the effect. That's why it didn't compress. Ideally, it should have been compressed, but it didn't. Anyway, at least it has copied the files with .avro extension. Okay. I think it is compressed, but it is not showing the extension. And if you try to cat on this, you will get the data with special characters, all garbled data. Okay. So now one more thing, what will happen is when we use these formats such as Avro or Parquet, it will create a file with extension .avsc wherever you have ran the Sqoop import command. Okay, so here you can see lsltr. You can see it has created a avsc file with name query result, and if you cat on that, you can see the data on the information of the fields which is retrieved. So it actually captures the metadata, and using this we can actually create a Hive table in Avro format by using this metadata. We can actually specify the table properties pointing to this file. This has to be copied to HDFS, and you can point your Hive queries table properties to this file, and then we can query from the table. Okay, so these are the special cases, Avro and Parquet, etc. So you need to understand how this metadata needs to be used while creating the Hive tables and running the queries. I have already covered as part of as part of my course, the CCA course. Let me. It is a very important aspect, especially if you want to give the certifications, and also as part of the day-to-day job. Also, we typically use these formats: Avro, Parquet, etc. So you need to be familiar with what is Avro, what is Parquet, and you have to start using those things as part of your day-to-day activities. So you can click on using Avro in Hive. And this is how you can specify. First, you need to copy that avsc file into HDFS location. It will look like this. And then you have to say, as part of the table properties, my schema URL is in this location. And I have created the external table. That's why I have location. And this is how you can actually use the stored as clause to actually create your Hive table using Avro format. Okay, so I'm passing this link to you. You can go through this directly. Okay. So that is about Sqoop import. I'm not going to cover all the scenarios. If you want to explore further about Sqoop, again, as part of my CCA course, I have covered pretty extensively. And bottom line is, you have to practice as much as possible. Okay, so there is a question from Venkat. Though I used the table departments underscore Avro file, it created departments.avsc file under home directory. It's supposed to create department underscore Avro file.avsc, but not. I think I need to look into that. I mean, if your table name is most likely this one could be your Hive table name. You might have done Hive import. But what is the error in this? I didn't get you. What is the error it has generated? Anyway, I will come back to that. So So Jiva have composed about this Sqoop incremental import. Yeah, I will show you a Sqoop incremental practical. At least I will cover how to do the incremental import. Okay. So this is how I will explain. I will explain at least theoretically. I might not be giving demo about how to do it, but I will be explaining at least theoretically. Let me go over it. So on top of this regular import control arguments, there are other control arguments also which you need to be familiar with. If you scroll down, you will see those things. One is incremental import. Other one is these output line formatting arguments. You have to be familiar about these things also, but you can go through my material as part of the CCA course so that you get familiar with it, because we have other topics also that needs to be covered, and you have to practice quite a bit. Unless you practice, you don't understand. You have to go through all these list and you have to practice, and you can ask me the questions if you have any on this when you practice. And other set of important arguments are Hive arguments. So if you want to do Hive import, you have to use these things. If you want to control how your new line characters, how your delimiters, etc., that is another important aspect I will cover along with the incremental import. First, let us talk about incremental import. So when it comes to incremental import arguments, incremental import itself, first let us understand what it is. So now, if we go back to our example, when we import the data, we imported the data for 1 month, which is August month. So let's say you get new set of data in September. So let's say our schedule is our SLAs to get the data from source systems is once in a month. So you got last month you got probably September data. This month you will get October. This month you will get actually September. Last month August, and once you are into November, you will get October's data. So you have to capture the delta. So there are multiple ways to capture the delta or incremental to capture the data in incremental fashion. One is in this example, we know that we want to fetch the data from a specific date to specific date. So we have to write a shell script in such a way that if the current date or whenever this job, the shell script is invoked, as part of the shell command itself, you need to check if the current date is beyond the month. So let me put this way. So when you actually come up with a incremental import strategy, first thing you need to see how to determine the delta. Okay. Second thing is generate Sqoop import command and run it. So let's take first example, first use case. On 1st of every month, get data for last month. Okay, so that is the first use case. Okay, so whenever we run Sqoop import, we need to store the information whether the Sqoop import is successful or not in some file. Okay, and the way you do is when you run the Sqoop import, so this is the way you do. First we need to determine the logic or the incremental load criteria. So you have to program for it. Okay, so let's say you have a cron job which is scheduled for first of every month. And it is not enough that when it is run, just get the data for October 1st and October 31st and ignore it. So the way it should have is get data from October 1st to October 31st, load into HDFS, and make sure you validate whether the data is copied or not programmatically. You should not go and check manually. You should make sure that data is copied into HDFS programmatically. How will you do that? So when you run the program, it has generated the log. It has generated the log, okay? And as part of the log, you can see that it has retrieved 14,268 records. There are no errors. So once the import is done, either when these logs are generated, you have to make sure that there are no errors, and also you get this final line which says retrieved, and then whatever number of records it is, and then you have to capture this information to confirm that there are no errors. Using this information, you can do that. And then if it is successful, you have to log that information. Either you can log into a table or you can log into a file. So you can redirect this information which says retrieved, and say, so typically what we will log when import is done, which is date, success or failure, number of records, whatever information you want to capture, etc. Okay, so either you can write that information into log file, or you can write into a table. So how you can write into a table? If you want to write into a table, you can use Sqoop eval command. Okay, so your program has to be self-sufficient. So it has to determine the incremental load criteria. So the on 1st of every month, it can generate the query saying where order date equal to the 1st of last month, order date is greater than or equal to 1st of the last month, and the last date of the last month, last day of the last month. And how you can use, there is a command called date in Unix or Linux. You need to understand this date command in detail. And if it is 1st of a particular month, you will try to get means you can add days, subtract days, etc. So using this date command, you can determine in which month you are in, and you can fetch, means you can generate the query directly. That is one approach. Or you can actually read it from some control tables. So as part of the data integration framework, you will have some control tables, and using that also you can generate. So it's up to you how you want to design. Okay, so that is one way of doing it. And if you are trying to load the data on some other field which cannot be determined like this, for example, you want to increment. Second use case is on daily basis, get data based on primary key. Okay, so there are multiple scenarios. Now if we go to the control arguments, there are one of the approach is to use control arguments, but I never use the control arguments because the options will be limited. It will be better to use where condition and use it to the incremental load than the control arguments. So in this case, one of the options is control using incremental import arguments. So there are three arguments: check column, incremental mode, and last value. Okay, so check column. So whichever column you want to use for incremental load, you can use check column. Incremental mode by default is append, and you have the last modified also. So it is typically with dates, you say last modified, otherwise you will just use append. And then last value. So what last value is, you have to pass the information from which you want to retrieve the data. So now let's so on daily basis get data based on a primary key, okay, which is odd ID. If you talk about orders, it's odd ID. If it is odd items, it is odd item ID. Okay, so here what you have to do, again you have to do the same thing, determine the incremental load criteria. In this case we are using a primary key column, and we cannot determine by simple date command of Linux or Unix. You have to use the control arguments, okay, sorry, control tables. So control tables or log tables, which are used as part of the data integration framework. So what you have to do, look up into control table to identify till what value data is already imported, okay, and then generate the Sqoop command. Okay, so if you are using in control arguments as part of the check column, you have to use the column which you are trying to use to get to perform the incremental load, and as part of the last value, you have to look up into the control table or log table or log file, and get the information from which you want to retrieve the data. Okay, so here we looked up into the control table to identify till what value data is already imported. Let's say it is 100. So you have to generate the Sqoop command either with where condition. So you can say where. So let's say we want to use order underscore ID. We have to either say greater than or equal to 101 or greater than 100. You have to have this logic to generate the Sqoop command like this. Okay. Again, here you have to use, if you want to use shell programming, you have to use shell features. The way you do it is so Sqoop underscore demo dot sh. Okay. So here first you have to write the code. Write code to look up into log table, and you have to create a variable. Let's say last value is the variable name equal to. So after looking up, you have to get it dynamically. You have to run Sqoop eval command, or if you log into a file, just you have to read from the file and get that value and append that value here. So in this case, last value is equal to 100. And then when you run the Sqoop import, let's use this one. Paste it. Here I'm trying to copy to the existing table, append. Okay. And then I can say where order ID greater than dollar last value. Okay, so as this is a shell script, this dollar last value will be replaced with this 100. Okay, so this is, and then After it is done, here you have to redirect the output into a file and look for any errors. If there are any errors, you have to report those errors. If there are no errors, if you want to write the information back to, so write code to pass the logs and send notification to operations if there is a failure. It's failed. If it is successful, actually you have to, no, 1 minute. Yeah, so first what you have to do is you have to write into log file and log table whether it is success or failure. In both the cases, you have to do that. Okay, so you have to write into a log file and log table, not an or. You can choose one over the other. It's up to you how you want to design. Okay, whether it is success or failure, you have to log it, and then you have to if it is success. So if it is failure, it has to send the notification immediately to operations. If it is success, what you have to do? Yeah, already we are logging the information. That's it. If it is failure, we have to send the notification to operations. So here, whenever we run the script, first it has to look up into a log table, get the value till where it is imported. So who will log this information? As part of the previous load, at this step, our program has to log that information. And then run the Sqoop import command. Once the command is done, again you have to log that information. If it is success, till what value it has copied. If it is failure, you have to mark it as failed, and then you have to send the notification. So how to get till what value it is imported? You have to run Sqoop eval by connecting to the source to determine what is the maximum value up to which you are copying data. Okay, otherwise you don't know. There is no point in going through the data in HDFS to identify till what value data is copied. You have to go to the source database using Sqoop eval command immediately after running the Sqoop import. Or a better way is, instead of using last value, you can also say lower bound upper bound. So upper bound, you can actually go to the source system and tell till what value. Yeah, wait, let me finish and then I will take the question. Okay, so this is the strategy which you need to develop to do the incremental load. Whether you want to use incremental control arguments or where condition, it doesn't matter. So let me take the question of Jiva. That's what. So if you have to fetch the last value from the log, last value might be in the log or it can be the control table. It depends upon how you design. So if it is there in the log, you just have to, yeah, again, those are all shell scripting. It comes under shell scripting. Okay, so if you want to read from a log, sh, let us do this. So you can do the cat command, and we already have Sqoop import dot log, okay, which generated the logs. So there you can, so one of the ways is you can just pipe the output by catting that file, and then you can say like this, while read line is so line will be variable which will have each line in it, okay. So if you have the information in the log file, it has to be means every day you will be replacing with the new value to identify what is the last value it is imported. So you have to use this is one way. There are several ways to do that. You can also say, if it is only one line, let me show va scoop last value, okay. So last value equal to 100. So if you want to just capture it in a file, I think you can do like this. Last value equal to cat scoop last value echo. I think you can do like this. So it's not the feature of scoop command. You have to use the underlying programming language features to read those last values. If it is in table, you can use scoop eval and get the last value. Yeah, if you're logged into a table, if you're logged into a file, you have to use whatever underlying programming language you want. So in this case, you can see you got the last value. So the program is very simple. So I'm catting the file which is capturing that last value. If you have a lot more information, you have to use awk or whatever command you want and extract that specific field. Okay, so you have to write relevant shell scripting code to fetch the information. If you are trying to use shell script, and if you are trying to log into a file, if it is a table, you have to use scoop eval and get the last value. I hope I answered that question. Anyway, I covered how you typically design. You have to look up before running the Sqoop import to identify the boundaries, and then generate the Sqoop command. Once the Sqoop command is done, you have to pass through the log generated and make sure the job is successful automatically. You should not go and review on daily basis. And then you have to log into appropriate tables. What is the last value that is imported? The upper bound of the last run has to be logged into a table so that you can identify the boundaries as part of the next run. So there is another question from Venkat. Delta usually determines three things: calendar day, numeric pointer, timestamp. Again, we can also use safety interval in number of days, means how many days ago data we can extract in DW. Yeah, so Venkat is from SAP BW background, so he know how to deal with these things. So even in your case, Jiva, if you have any friends who are from data warehousing background, it will be better to have brainstorming sessions with them to understand typically how they develop the data integration frameworks or ETL flows. And then you just have to should be able to visualize how you can accomplish that using the big data ecosystem tools. Or I will be conducting workshop very soon. Right now, I am a little bit busy to build the lab. Once it is done, I will be conducting the workshops very soon. So any questions related to Sqoop import incremental load? So don't think that you have to use only these incremental import arguments to do the incremental load. They does not serve the purpose at all. Okay, you have to use a programming language, and you have to log the information into appropriate tables, and you have to get the data from that, and then perform the incremental load. And this will not serve the purpose. And then another important aspect which you need to understand when it comes to Sqoop is the delimiters. As we have seen in Hive, in Sqoop also we have delimiters. We have fields terminated by and lines terminated by. Fields terminated by is the delimiter for the columns. Lines terminated by is the delimiter for the records. So by default, fields are terminated by comma in Sqoop, and lines are terminated by new line character. And the default field terminator in Hive is null character. So when we actually import the data into HDFS and when we try to create the table as Sqoop, whatever delimiter we have used as part of our Sqoop import, we have to use the same delimiter while creating the table in Hive. So you have to make sure that all these coordinate well. Okay, so you need to understand the technical specifications or come up with the technical specification which is agreed upon between the Sqoop flow and the Hive data processing using Hive. It is very, very important. In most of the scenarios, a separate team or separate member in the team will work on automating the Sqoop data will be working on data integration framework, and a different team or different team member might work on data processing framework using Hive. And these two guys have to understand the dependencies, and one of the important dependency is the fields terminated by, because it is different for Sqoop and it is different for Hive. Again, I'm not going to demonstrate this. You can just practice. You can just add these control arguments and see the behavior. And then if you want to use Hive import, you have to use these arguments so that the Hive tables are created at the time of Sqoop import itself. So again, as part of my CCA course, I have covered quite extensively. I will recommend you to go through this and practice as much as possible. Okay, practice is more important than me explaining these things. When you practice, if you have any questions, you can definitely ask me as part of the next class. Okay, that being said, we'll move on to the next topic, Sqoop export. So Sqoop import is to get the data from the source database into HDFS. Sqoop export is the other way around. So if you have the data in HDFS, and if you want to copy data back to MySQL or any traditional RDBMS, then you use Sqoop export. So here also we'll go through the syntax from the Sqoop user guide. Actually, for Sqoop material, you don't need to go to CCA. I already have all the material, whatever is in CCA, in the Big Data Engineer Immersion course itself. So you just have to go through these things. I'm sorry, I have confused you a little bit. So for the Sqoop material, you can go through this itself. But when it comes to dealing with Avro file formats and the dependencies between Sqoop and Avro, you have to go to the CCA course. Otherwise, it's available as part of the Big Data Engineer course itself, and the material is same. So the next one is export data from HDFS. We will go to this. So when it comes to concepts, you need to understand that export also use MapReduce to read data from HDFS. It connects to RDBMS database using JDBC driver, and it issues standard DML commands such as insert to load the data. It supports upset, which means that update or insert. If the data already exists, it will try to update. If the data does not exist, it will try to insert. For only MySQL and Postgres, as per my experience. Probably for other databases also, they might have added recently, and this is a very important limitation. Okay, because when you actually talk to most of the Hadoop consultants, they don't have real world experience. So they will either go with the POC background, they will suggest based upon the POC background or knowledge of that after going through the Sqoop user guide. Okay, and somewhere in the Sqoop user guide, they have mentioned that it supports only MySQL, but a lot of guys don't focus that much, and unless someone actually try, they don't realize that it does not support for other databases. Okay, so as of now, for sure it is supported for MySQL and Postgres. For other databases, you have to go through the other database vendors documentation about their drivers, about what all it can support, and based on that, you have to make the assumptions. And I will highly recommend you to first do a POC and then only determine whether it works or not. Okay, it's a very important limitation because we cannot update the data. We can only insert the data at the time of Sqoop export. You have to keep that, and you have that in mind, and you have to develop the integration data integration framework or application working around these limitations. It supports batch mode for MySQL and Postgres. And this is the last point is very important. Mappers will be invoked using HDFS split logic. So I will explain what does that mean. So I'm connecting my device so that I can do the whiteboarding. So just hold on for a moment. Okay, so you have the database. And you have the Hadoop cluster. Okay, so database will have a table. So let us revisit how the import is done, and then we will also see how the export is done. Okay, so when we run the import, let's say the table name is T1, and the default is 4 as the number of mappers is 4. Okay, and I have already explained in the last class also. We are just revisiting, so I will be a little bit fast. If you have any questions, you can ask me. So number of mappers are 4, and let's say data this table have 1 to 1 million. Okay, so this 1 to 1 million will be divided into 4 threads. Means when you specify number of mappers as 4, it will issue a query to get the minimum, which is 1, and maximum, which is 1 million. And then it will divide this data into 4 threads. So the first thread will be 1 to what Sqoop will do is it will generate 4 queries with the boundary conditions 1 to 250K, 250K to 500K. Third one is 500K to 750K. When I say for this one, 250K plus 1 actually, 500K plus 1 to 750K, 750K plus 1 to 1 million. So this, when we say number of mappers as 4, based upon the number of records, minimum and maximum value, it will generate the, it will determine the boundary conditions, and then there will be 4 connections to the database. Okay, so let's say these are 4 connections. Okay, the first connection using JDBC will use these boundary conditions, and it will read the data, and then it will write into HDFS. So there will be one file or one or more files for this for the first condition, which is 1 to 250K. Similarly, there will be another JDBC connection. If there is enough capacity, those 4 threads can be running parallel, or again, it all depends upon how the load is. It might be a little bit sequential, it can be completely parallel. It all depends upon the capacity of the cluster available at the time to do the import. So this is how it will actually do the import. Now coming back to export. So this is our HDFS cluster. And we have multiple nodes. And this is our database. Okay. So now let's say we have file F1 with, and let us understand the properties of the file. It is of size 1 GB. Okay. And our HDFS block size is 128 MB. Replication, just consider it as 1. Replication factor is 1, so there is only 1 copy of it. It doesn't matter whether we have 1 copy or 2 copies of it based on replication factor. The most important one is here is 128, the block size, okay, which is 128 MB. So for this file there will be 8 blocks. So most likely this one will have 2 blocks, B1 and B7, B3 and B8, B2, B6, B4, B5. Let's say it is equally distributed, and each node got 2 blocks of them. Now when you do the Sqoop export, again, when you do the Sqoop export, let's say the number of mappers is 4 itself. So what will happen? So there will be 4 mappers which will be processing the data, M1, M2, M3, M4. Okay, but there are 8 blocks, and we have only we are trying to use only 4 mappers. So if you recollect, there is a concept called split size. I'm not sure whether I have covered as part of the map. I think I have covered. There is a concept called split size. It uses combined file input format and split size internally. So what will happen is each mapper, in this case, will try to process 2 blocks at a time, because we have given number of mappers as 4. So there will be 4 mappers processing 2 blocks. Most likely it will process both the blocks from the same node, if there are 2 blocks available. Otherwise it has to do the network IO. So each mapper will process 2 blocks, and that mapper will have a JDBC connection. Okay, and as using the JDBC connection, it will generate the insert command if it is just plain insert, or if you are trying to do it in default mode, which is insert mode. Each thread will actually establish the JDBC connection. So there will be 4 JDBC connections, and if there are 1 million records, approximately 250,000 will be inserted by one mapper, 250,000 will be inserted by second, third, and fourth mappers. So this is how it will actually load the data as part of the Sqoop export. The major difference is, at the time of Sqoop import, it will try to fetch the data by generating the ranges using the primary key field, or the field which is passed as part of the split by. When it comes to Sqoop export, it uses the native HDFS split concept to fetch the data using the number of mappers which are passed, and load into data in HDFS using so many threads. Okay, so the split size will be computed based upon the size of the file. In this case, it is 1 GB. So the split size will be approximately 256 MB. If the file size is only 128 MB instead of 1 GB, let's say there is another file which is 128 MB. And if you use number of mappers as 4, even though the block size is 128 MB, the split size will be 32 MB. So whatever the file size is divided by number of mappers will be the approximate split size. Still, there will be 4 threads, and each mapper will try to process a split of 32 MB. It could be one from one file itself. So the same file will be split into multiple splits while processing the data, and it will try to use the split logic the way MapReduce uses to get the data of that thread and load into HDFS. So it doesn't matter if the file size is 128 MB or 1 GB, whatever it is, depending upon the number of threads, it will try to compute the split size by dividing the file with the number of mappers, and it will try to use that split size to import the data. Internally, it uses something called combined file input format, which facilitate this. Okay, so that is about Sqoop export, how it works. And now we will get into the syntax. So before actually getting into the syntax and all, make sure we have a table in MySQL where we can export the data. So here I am logging into MySQL in CloudX Lab. Show tables. There is a department underscore export. So select star from department export. Departments underscore export. There is data already, so I'm just truncating this table. So now there is no data. Now we will try to export the data. So first, let us review all the different control arguments we have, and then we will build the Sqoop export command to copy the data. Sqoop export is a lot more easier or straightforward compared to Sqoop import. Sqoop import is the most important command, and it has a lot of variations or a lot of options, because as it is issuing select query onto the source table, it gives a lot more flexibility to use where condition, query, columns, etc. When it comes to Sqoop export, because it is using the internal HDFS split or MapReduce split logic, it does not give you all that flexibility. You cannot say, I just want to fetch so and so column from the data set in HDFS to export. It is not possible. I will explain how to work around probably as part of the next session. So let us understand the different control arguments. Common arguments are same. We are directly getting to the control arguments. Only these are available. Oh, it says columns. So here it has columns. 1 minute. But the columns does not actually determine. So the purpose of the columns here is, for example, we have data in HDFS in out of order with our underlying table. So in this case, the departments table in MySQL have department ID and department name, 2 fields in this order. But in HDFS, let's say we have department name as first field and department ID as the next field. Okay, so in that case, if we have to export into this table, then as part of the columns, we have to give the first field as department name, whatever the representation as part of HDFS, and the second column is department ID. Because it issues the insert command, internally it will do insert into this departments underscore export, it will say like this: department name, department ID, values, whatever values that come from the from HDFS. It doesn't mean that it will only select those fields in HDFS. It is not possible. From HDFS, it has to fetch everything. Here we are only saying that the tables can be out of the sync. The table might be out of the sync with the data we are getting from HDFS. To make sure we load into the appropriate columns, we use -- columns. Okay, and direct is for batch load, which can improve performance if it is supported, and it is supported only with MySQL and Postgres. Export directory, it is the counterpart for target directory or warehouse directory. So whatever HDFS source from which you want to export, you have to pass that as part of the export directory. Number of mappers, so it's the same as the import command. Table, to which table you want to copy the data. You can also invoke a stored procedure. So you can use call to invoke the stored procedure while exporting the data. Update key and update mode, these are available only if upset is supported. Okay, so update mode is by default update only. 1 minute. Yeah, so if it is update only, so I will explain. So update mode has two values: update only and allow insert. Okay, if you say allow insert, it is upset, and that upset is only supported in databases like Postgres or MySQL, which means if the record already exists, then it will update the record. If the record does not exist, it will insert the record. Okay, for all the other databases, it doesn't make any sense. There is only update only mode, which means that if data exists, means if the key exists on which you are trying to load the data, it will run the update command. Okay, but if the data does not exist, if when you try to specify update key to update the data, if there is no record, it will not insert. So upset is not supported by default in all the databases. It is only supported in MySQL and Postgres, and also it is not default. If you have to simulate upset, you have to say update mode as allow insert. Okay, otherwise if you say update key, if the key already exists, it will update the data. If the key does not exist, it will ignore. Okay, then input null string and input null non-string. So when, as I have explained earlier also, nulls and non-nulls, there is no proprietary representation in HDFS. It has to be represented using some string. Typically, if it is numeric value, and if we like age will have only the numeric values. Age cannot be negative, so we can give -1 as null value for age. Okay, so depending upon the field and what all values we store in that, we will try to represent null values in that field, which will never be used as part of the valid data set. Okay, so here if you have -1 for age as null values in HDFS, we have to convert it into database proprietary null value. So here we are saying if the value is -1 for numeric, input null non-string -1, then for all those -1s will be loaded as null values as part of the database table. Okay, and staging table, if you want to load into a staging table when doing the export, instead of loading the target table directly, if you want to stage it, and if it is successful, then only you want to load into the final table, and then you can use staging table. I will explain a logic a little bit why it is important a little bit later. And then clear staging table, if you are using staging table, if you want to clear after every run, you can use clear staging table. So let me explain why there is a staging table. Okay, when you try to do the Sqoop export, so let's say already the table have 1 to 1000 rows. Okay, and when you do the Sqoop export, let's say you are trying to export data from 999 to 1 million. Okay, so there are two values, 999 and 1000, which are already there, and it's a primary key. By default, if you are not using update key, all this data, what Sqoop will try to do is it will try to import this data uh, into the target table. So this is database table, and this is the data which we are trying to export, data to be exported. Okay, so we have collision of 999 and 1000. When we do the Sqoop export, let's say it started exporting the data, and uh, it will start when, and let's say we have given 4 threads, number of mappers as 4. So up to approximately 250K, because we are trying to load up to 1 million, approximately 250K, thread 1 will, or mapper 1 will try to load the data. 250K to 500K, mapper 2 will try to load the data. 500K to 750K, mapper 3 will load the data. 750K to 1 million, mapper 4 will load the data. So these two values, only mapper 1 will try to load 999 and 1000. All the other 3 mappers, there are no duplicates. So when we try to load this data into the target table where there is a primary key on this ID, this will, M2, M3, M4 will be able to load without any issues. Only when it comes to M1, when it try to load 999 and 1000, only then it will violate the constraint. Okay, so as part of the first one, M2, M3, M4 will be able to load the data, but M1 might fail after some time. By the time, some data will be already loaded and it will be committed. So whenever there is a failure, okay, the default behavior of MapReduce is it will retry 4 times, but all the 4 times you will find the duplicate values. Okay, especially as it will retry more in the first time only, it will encounter duplicates with respect to 999 and 1000, which is violating the primary key constraint. But for the next time, already there might be a lot of data which is being loaded this M1 by M1 itself, apart from 999 and 1000. So it will start failing. So all the 4 times it will fail and the job will give up. But whatever is committed is already in the table. So what you have to do, you have to clean up everything from 1001 to 1 million, and then you have to again clean up your data on the source system, source from which you were trying to export, and then you have to load the data. So by using staging table, you will not be in this dangling situation. Okay, so as part of the staging table, first you can get the data whatever you have in the target table into a staging table. Okay, no, you should not. So you will be loading this 999 to 1 million into the staging. Let me confirm. Let me confirm. I got a little bit confused. Yeah, so the table in which data will be stored before being inserted into the destination tables. Okay, data will be inserted into the staging table. So I'm trying to understand the scenario, or I'm trying to explain the scenario where this staging table will come handy. Okay, this is one scenario. So in this case, staging table will have 999 to 1 million, and yes. So yeah, this is the exact problem which it will try to solve. So you get the entire data 999 to 1 million into staging without any issues, and then from staging to target table, you will be writing one single insert query. Means not we, the Sqoop will be running one single insert query at the end, and try to insert from 999 to 1 million in one shot. Already data is in the staging table using 4 parallel threads. As part of the final step, we are trying to insert into the final table in one shot. What will happen? Because we are trying to commit in one thread, it will encounter the primary key violation, and it will never commit. So your target table will never be convoluted if there is some issue or some collisions between the incoming data which you're trying to insert into the target table. That's the purpose of the staging table. There are several other scenarios, but this is the main intention of creating this staging table, so that instead of directly loading into the target table and leave the target table in a unhealthy or inconsistent state, if there is an issue with Sqoop import, sorry, Sqoop export, especially when it comes to duplicates, you use staging table to stage the entire data, and the Sqoop export itself will take care of issuing that the final insert command, which will load into the target table. If everything goes smooth, you are good to go. Otherwise, your table will not have any data. You just have to fix the source and reload the data again. So that is the purpose of the staging table. So these are a few handful arguments which you have. You can use these things while doing the Sqoop export. Again, we need to review all this depending upon our requirement. We need to understand the limitations, and we have to work around those limitations as part of our data integration framework or application. I will continue talking on Sqoop as part of the next class. Probably first half an hour we'll be done with Sqoop, and then we'll get into the next topic as part of our course, which is HBase. Yes, HBase. And I will only give an overview about HBase. I will not get into too many details, and we will cover Spark data frames. I will skip Flume and Kafka as well as Uzi, and I will conduct a workshop on those two topics very soon. And even visualization using Tableau. And as part of the next week, we will primarily seeing setting up Hadoop and Spark cluster. Uh, I will only demonstrate. You don't need to practice this unless you want to. That being said, let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, we will wrap up for today. So I know it is a little bit fast-paced. I made it intentionally fast-paced because we need to understand the breadth of the topics. Especially you are all experienced professionals. Yeah, you have to understand a few things in depth, and at the same time you need to have a breadth of the knowledge also. So you have to deep dive with Spark, Hive, and Sqoop, and also SDFS commands. These four you have to have in-depth knowledge, and then others you should know what is the relevance of those things, and then you should be able to implement. I don't think so, Ramesh. No one is working on big data in this group. All are experienced professionals, but not in big data. So, any other questions? Any other question? Thank you, Venkat. So I will give 10 seconds. If there are no questions, we'll wrap up for today. Let me check in YouTube live if anyone have any questions. It seems not. So people who are on YouTube live, if you like this video, please click on the like button. If you want to provide the feedback, the comment section will be available once the video is streamed. You can always post the comments. And if you want to be part of my live training, there is a form which I will be annotate as part of all the videos. Means you will get the link or the details as part of the video itself. You can fill the form, and my next batch will start in January. So I will conduct few kickoff sessions, and I will start the session. And also, good news for folks who are on WebEx, we are very close to build the lab, and I'm planning to give very good lab. Probably November 3rd week or November 4th week or December first half. There will be a trial run for a week or two, and at the time the lab will be free. We will see how the performance is and all those things. And if everything goes smooth, then we will announce the lab by the end of December or first week of January. And it will be a good size cluster. We are planning to build a cluster of 256 GB capacity, 256 GB RAM. Either it will be 8 node 32 GB cluster or 16 node 16 GB cluster to give you the 256 GB RAM capacity. It will have good amount of storage, and I will be selling subscriptions to that once we feel that we can. It is feasible for us to run that lab. Okay. Okay, then thank you very much. Have a nice one. Bye. Thank you very much, whoever joined in the YouTube live. We will see as part of the next session. Thank you. Bye.